Justin Scott, big fish. Last I heard, it was between Notre Dame and Michigan. Well, it is no longer between Notre Dame and Michigan. He is an Ohio State Buckeye as of right now. Of course, signing day is coming up in December, and there will continue to be contacts made to Justin Scott, I am sure, over the next few months. But out of St. Ignatius, not in Cleveland, Steve, but out of Chicago, is a top 2 or 3 defensive linemen in the country.
Yeah, 6'4", 310-pound defensive tackle, and this is the kind of five-star defensive tackle that Ohio State has not had in recent years. Number 14 overall prospect in the country, number 3 defensive tackle, and you just watch his tape. I mean, he's nimble for such a big guy, gets off blocks, wreaks havoc in the backfield, and I think that this caught a lot of people off guard late last week when this happened, Friday or Saturday, I guess, going into the holiday weekend, that Scott made his verbal commitment to Ohio State. And so the Buckeyes fill a glaring hole, glaring need at defensive tackle. They were hoping to also add, Marquise Lightfoot, I think, also from Chicago, defensive end. But at the 11th hour, people were furiously switching their crystal balls and their predictions online from Ohio State to Miami, and that's exactly where he ended up committing. But Justin Scott, the better prospect of the two, or the higher ranked prospect of the two, and again, fills a tremendous need for Ohio State at defensive tackle. So to me, just a huge get for Larry Johnson and Ohio State on the defensive side of the ball. And I know that as we get into this hour, there are many, many more defensive guys lined up waiting, it seems, at least to make commitments, and some of them to make commitments to Ohio State. We can tick some of those off here as we get into this, but Justin Scott, a huge name, I think, for Ohio State to take off the board and to put into this class now. 17 commitments, probably headed in the low 20s before it's all said and done.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think that the number is going to be a little bit higher, actually, Steve. I think we're going to see a class that's going to get at least a 25. I mean, I think it could go a little bit higher. There is a real strong chance that we could see a lot of attrition after this year. You have a gigantic senior class / guys that are in their 4th year type of situation. And if this team is as good as a lot of people think they're going to be, and you mess around and you win it all, a lot of guys could bolt. So I think that they're going to fill the ranks and figure out the numbers later. But as to Justin Scott, Ohio State has done well at times in its defensive tackle recruiting, but that's a lot of 3 techs. Justin Scott's a 1. I mean, he is a big body space eater, kind of in the mold of Caden McDonald. Was drawing a blank there for a second. Justin Scott, definitely the higher rated recruit compared to Caden McDonald, who's a true freshman this year. Of course, it brings in the question, could we see some odd man front in the future for Ohio State? Because they've never really had a lot of those 310 guys up the gut that can just line up over the center. So a lot of interesting things there. But yeah, Michigan and Notre Dame certainly felt as if they were in the catbird seat in this one. Am I shocked Ohio State landed him? Not entirely. I'm surprised. Am I shocked at the timing of it? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we all pre-write stories and have things ready to go when we think somebody is on the verge of committing. And I've written more stories that have not made publication than have made publication in terms of recruiting stories. Didn't have anything ready on Justin Scott. That's how much of a surprise it was to me of when it came down, but just a huge get. The reports of the demise of Larry Johnson's coaching career are greatly overstated at this point, greatly exaggerated. This is a huge get. And as Steve alluded to, there are some other names that are on the horizon right now that are looking very good for Ohio State fans. And this could be a pretty darn special defensive line class for the Buckeyes, after year in and year out of special receiver classes. If you can start getting some of these on the defensive side of the ball, things might even out a little bit.
So, Kevin, why don't we stay right there with some of the probabilities or possibilities with some of these other prospects? Steve had alerted me to some scheduled announcements coming up, whether that's Aaron Scott, KJ Bolden, Kingston Viliamu, Asa.
KVA.
And
Yeah, we'll just call him KVA. That's a lot easier.
you're usually the expert, at least here. You are the expert of a bunch of, low
I'm just
grade
the tallest blade of
pronunciation
grass. It
experts.
doesn't mean that I know anything, but yeah,
Yes,
I'll take it.
you're on the high end for this show when it comes to figuring out the pronunciation ahead of the rest of us. But where do we stand in regards to what you expect, where the leans are, and what the possibilities are for the Buckeyes?
Well, I don't want to give away all the information quite yet. That you have to have a reason to check out Buckeye Huddle and Bucknuts and sites like that. So can't give it all away. But we know that on the defensive side of the ball, that that Miles Lockhart is supposed to announce tomorrow. He's really between Ohio State and Oregon. I mean, there might be some other schools in there, but those are the main two. I expect that one to go Ohio State's way, and then. Yeah, you mentioned Aaron Scott, who's going to be deciding at the end of the month, and that's obviously going to be a big deal. Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan there. It's his dad's birthday. His family are huge Buckeye fans, so a lot of people have done the math that probably means that is going to be Ohio State. But to stay on the kind of the theme of the defensive line, I mean, obviously you have Edric Houston, who's supposed to be announcing in August. There are a lot of crystal ball, future casts, RPM, whatever's, tea leaves out there saying that Ohio State seems to be sitting in a good position for him, and I agree with that. You've got Dylan Stewart out of Washington, D.C., who has also recently had some of those prediction pieces come in favor of Ohio State. So, if the Buckeyes are able to land guys like that. But I think another name that people aren't talking about as much as Nigel Smith out of Melissa, Texas, seems to be kind of an Oklahoma lean, I think. But you got to wonder what the movement of Marquise Lightfoot, who Ohio State's going to continue recruiting, because honestly, until about 48 hours, maybe even less before his announcement, I think everybody felt it was going to be Ohio State. So, once things settle down, does he maybe change his mind? You never know. I mean, recruiting is very fluid. But there are a lot of names out there defensively in terms of the line. And then, yes, you've got KVA, the linebacker. I think he's July or August, I think is kind of what he said. That would be a huge get. You sit there and you look at Nicholas Rodriguez, who committed to Missouri, the linebacker out of St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale. His commitment to Missouri really leads me to believe that Ohio State feels pretty strongly about its chances of KVA, because you just don't let a guy like Nick Rodriguez walk. And, I think Nick Rodriguez wanted to go to Ohio State if all things are being equal. He's teammates with Ohio State running back commit Jordan Lyle. So a lot could be happening coming up soon. And I think that the people that were very worried about Ohio State's defensive recruiting lagging so far behind the offensive recruiting, I think by the time we get to September 1, people will still have reasons to be like, well, we're not completely set at safety, or we're not completely set here. But I think the overriding concerns may be tempered a little.
Yeah, KJ Bolden, the big time safety from Buford, Georgia, ranked number 6 overall nationally. I think he's supposed to announce, I want to say August 5th. Does that sound right? And, most of the future casts and crystal balls are in on Georgia for him. But Bill Kurlick, who I work with, still says he thinks there's an outside chance Ohio State could land KJ Bolden. And he said there's been a campaign by the Ohio State commitments in the class 2024 guys to really campaign and work KJ Bolden behind the scenes to get him to become part of this class. So to me, safety is a position where they're playing some older players right now. And by 2024, there is a chance, kind of a changing of the guard moment there, where he could maybe come in and get some reps and get some plays as a true freshman in 2024 if he's always cracked up to be. So I'd say that one is kind of probably a 60-40 Georgia proposition, but Ohio State's going to fight that one tooth and nail. I really don't have a great feeling on Dylan Stewart. I mean, it sounds good in theory that some people are thinking he's leaning Ohio State's way, and I think that would be just a huge get. Edric Houston, another big timer out of Buford, Georgia. Is he leaning to Ohio State? I guess we'll see. We're going to find out soon enough, it seems like. So, going to announce in August, it sounds like. So, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of meat on the bone. And I think that Ryan Day and Jim Knowles deserve credit for really sinking their teeth into this challenge. I think some of it is that Jim Knowles, now second year, has become more familiar with the players. The players have become more familiar with him. James Laurinaitis is helping him out with linebackers, so that's huge. Larry Johnson, the one holdover, is starting to really take root again and bring in some big-time guys. And I think Tim Walton and Perry Eliano are going to do a bang-up job in the secondary. They're going to get great players, I think, to come in and play at Ohio State. So you increase and improve the and this is something I've harped on for 3-4 years now. You increase and improve the caliber of the X's and O's. It's only going to help the bottom line for the entire defense. And I think that's what we're seeing right before our eyes, one kid at a time.
I want to jump in with my thoughts on KJ Bolden. I've known Bill Kurylik forever. I've worked with him before for 1 year when we were both at Rivals. And I'll say Bill's probably a little bit more conservative in terms of his picks than maybe I am. Maybe I wildcat a little bit more on things. I feel pretty good about Ohio State's chances in landing KJ Bolden, to be quite honest. I would put Ohio State as the favorite. And honestly, I think Alabama might be more in the mix
challenge than Georgia.
If we're being, I mean, if my information is correct there. And one thing too about Buford High School is Buford is a powerhouse outside of Georgia, northeast of Atlanta, out northeast of Atlanta, I guess. That is a school, despite all of UGA's best efforts, that it can't lock down. And it's not Glenville. It's not going to get everybody that comes out of Buford. And that's, strangely enough, where Dylan Raiola has transferred to, the former Ohio State quarterback, current UGA quarterback recruit commit, I guess. So I like Ohio State to go 2 for 2 at Buford in landing both of those guys. So, we'll see. Things change. Again, as I said, Marquise Lightfoot, 36 hours prior to his announcement, I was fully expecting to be Ohio State, and things change. But between Edric Houston and KJ Bolden, I feel stronger about Edric Houston ending up at Ohio State. But as I remember a taco commercial once, the little girl saying, "Why not both?" And I would say that too. Why not both? I think that Ohio State can land both.
Yeah, for a school that lives in the top 5 in recruiting, it's still pretty astonishing what they're accomplishing. And in place of maybe 5 or 6 of the top 8 guys in the class being offensive players, it's becoming a more well-rounded class as they start to continue to drive in these defensive commitments. And as you both stated, if they can get their fair share of this next batch that's coming up, then it really could be impressive. And if we look at the numbers right now, if you look at the recruiting rankings in terms of average player rating, Georgia and Ohio State have separated themselves. Alabama's on the way. Of course, their average player rating's as good as anybody, and they'll add the volume and get there. But those 3 are way out in front of everybody else when it comes to the quality of the classes. It's pretty astonishing.